My name is Ronald Eid, and I run the mostly YouTube channel called JawHacks. And JawHacks is a 7-year-old channel that focuses on medical and dental procedures related to sleep disordered breathing, aka sleep apnea. And basically, we focus on non-PAP or non-CPAP treatments. So normally, sleep apnea is treated with CPAP, which is a device that pumps air into your mouth and nose, and that's fine. But what my channel focuses on are surgeries and palatal expanders that actually affect the facial structure and the jaw structure to try to make the airways bigger. Because, and now I'm kind of getting into the weeds already here, but basically, your facial structure is your jaws are your airway, and so if your jaws are too small, then you'll tend to have sleep apnea. And so one way to treat the root cause of sleep apnea is to just make the jaws bigger. But it turns out that's a really complicated thing to do and very dangerous, because you're, doing surgeries that affect your facial structure. And if they go wrong, they can deform you and make you very ugly and cause chronic pain conditions. And so, or you can knock out teeth. And so what my coaching revolves around is patient advocacy consulting or patient advocacy coaching for patients that are navigating this space of trying to get jaw surgery and expanders done. And I essentially coach them on what generally their options are in terms of expanders and jaw surgery, who are the top doctors in the space, what am I hearing from other clients of mine about what their experience is with certain procedures and doctors. And then I'm kind of following them along their journey as they consult with doctors and then start going through treatment. And I'll sort of be there for them as a shoulder they can lean on, an emotional support, and also just kind of an advocate in every sense of the word as they go through this roughly 2 to 3 year process. So yeah, JawHacks is it's a podcast where I interview top doctors and dentists in this airway space. And sometimes I bring clients on and I interview them, because really the patient stories are just as interesting as what the doctors have to say, and oftentimes more trustworthy, because doctors are selling something and patients are not. Patients are just selling their truth and their experience. So yeah, that's what JawHacks is. It's been an organic kind of process. Never intended to do this. I was just a patient who went through his own jaw treatment stuff, started documenting it in a blog and on a YouTube channel starting in late 2017. And then it just grew, because turns out there's a lot of people that struggle with their breathing.
That sounds amazing. And actually, it feels like you really, honestly, it can be so overwhelming to make those decisions, especially medical decisions. And having someone who can actually support you on your journey can really take away so much of the overwhelm and complication that comes with it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And then another thing I should say is I don't take any kickbacks from doctors or dentists or anyone. I don't have any sponsors. I don't have any relationships with doctors where they pay me to refer to them. So my whole model is just telling the truth. I just get the gossip and I get the data and the feedback from people that are in the field having these treatments done. And then even if I'm friendly with a doctor, if what they're doing is something I disagree with, I have to say it and I have to coach people accordingly. So really, trust is my whole model. And I think that's so important for coaching and for coaches. If you don't have the trust of your audience and of your clients, you have nothing. And so you should aspire to keep integrity and trust at the center of everything you say and do in public and in private. And really, my number one asset is that for 7 years on YouTube and in writing, all I've ever done is tell the truth the best that I can. And when I've made mistakes, and I've tried to admit it and correct it. And I've always tried to ask tough questions, although I do struggle with that because I'm not generally a very confrontational person by nature. So sometimes in my interviews, I can get rolled over by, these big dominant doctor types, but I try to ask the tough questions. And I can't emphasize how much truth and integrity is important for anyone who's a professional advice giver.
And actually, I think you bring up a good point around sometimes, everyone makes mistakes, But owning up to your mistakes is a part of building that trust and that integrity. It's that I'm human, but I'm here to also own up for, what I did wrong, and I'm also learning as I go.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, that's how science works, is no one expects you to have all the answers at any one time, especially with respect to what I do in airway health and jaw surgery and expanders. This field is moving quickly, and social media is pouring gasoline over the fire, where more and more patients are becoming interested in these procedures, and this field is growing rapidly. And then the doctors are changing what they do in response to the demand. And so the social media is in the doctors and what they offer, it's a dynamic relationship that feeds into each other. And so the field is so different than it was even 2 years ago. There's always a new appliance. There's always a new doctor who emerges on the scene with some new technique or procedure, and people want to know about it. So it's literally impossible to have all of the answers, because the answers don't actually exist yet, because it's a changing thing. So humility around what can be known and what you actually know is so important. And so it's easier to just say, I don't know. And like, what my job is not to actually know everything. It's to seek to know everything. I'm a researcher. I'm not someone with the answers. I'm someone who goes out and gets the answers. And that's also the thing that makes me continue to be interested and do it, is like this curiosity and this desire to learn more. And that's the exact attitude I bring to my podcasting, is I ask the questions that I want to know the answers to, because I don't know the answers. Yeah, so it's impossible to know everything. No one expects you to know everything. And that's kind of where Gary Vee comes in, where he says, document, don't create. It's like, I'm not here to create new truth. I'm just here to try to discern what the truth is from the world around me. And it's always evolving and changing. And yeah, of course, you have to always admit your limits about what you know, which I'm frequently doing. And then when you get something wrong, another thing I've learned about being a subject matter expert is that you kind of always just have to say when you're not totally sure if this is the real deal. Like, you can talk about a new thing if it seems like the latest, greatest thing, but you also have to say, well, let's just all wait a year or two before we dive into this, because we've done that before, where we've, celebrated too soon on something we learned about, and then it turns out to be a fraud. And so, yeah, I'm always qualifying statements with, hey, maybe this is true, but maybe it isn't. Let's all just wait and see.
You bring up actually another good point, because a lot of coaches who are starting out, or creators who are starting to monetize their following, there's this fear that, I have to know everything. I have to be the absolute expert in this subject matter, and I have to have all of the answers. But what you've just said right now proves that that's not true. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to have also the humility to be able to say, sometimes I don't know the answer. I'm also, on that journey, and I'm figuring it out, and also asking the questions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Also, I would say, remember as a coach that a lot of what you do is not technical. The technical expertise is important, and you need to have some amount of that, even though you might not have the most. But the fact that you have this presence on the internet makes it puts you in front of people. So even if there's people that are technically better than you out there, no one knows about it. And so you're the default go-to person. But what I was going to say is, as a coach, it's not just about the technicals. It's also about the intangibles and the emotional support. So people don't just come to you for something that they could ask ChatGPT. People come to you because they want a human connection. They want someone who's going to listen to them, who's going to give them a real human touch point and feedback. And also, there is this, I don't want to say like celebrity element to it, where people just want to know you. And so part of what they're paying for through your coaching is the fact that they want to have a connection with you. But like, at the same time, that is kind of what it is. And that's okay, because a lot of people are lonely. And when they spend, let's say you have 500 videos on YouTube going back 5 years, like I do, if people binge watch your videos, they're going to feel like they know you. And they're going to want to just connect with you more like a friend. And that's also a big part of what coaching can be. If you're an online coach, is it's don't be so preoccupied with having technical expertise like to the utmost. Remember that it's a mix of technical expertise and being just a good friend to people and caring about them genuinely and listening to them and giving emotional support. And I would just say like friendship. Like I try to be friends with my clients. I treat them like I do my family or friends. I give them 110%. I genuinely care about their well-being. And I think that has served me well over the years in terms of delivering positive experiences. I started in 2017 through a blog on Squarespace, and the blog was called Migraine Hacks, and I was just documenting my experience trying to figure out my chronic headache condition and some surgeries and palatal expanders that I was doing to try to treat that. Turns out no one really cares about headaches. All they were caring about actually was the palatal expanders and like that as a kind of localized thing. Because sure, some people try to expand their jaws to treat headaches, but some people just want to expand their jaws for other reasons, like maybe to change the way they look. And that's okay too. And so I changed the name of my blog from Migraine Hacks to Jaw Hacks because all of the audience was more interested in the jaw stuff than in the headache stuff. Then I started posting YouTube videos, documenting my own experience with procedures. Then I started in 2020, I did my first interview with a doctor. And that's when it became more like, hey, let's change the emphasis from my experience to subject matter expertise in general, where I'm now serving as a journalist who's documenting not just my experience, but the experience of the entire field of other doctors, of other patients besides myself. And then once I kind of broke through that this wasn't just a vlog, this was a podcast channel, then the channel kind of, entered a different era. And yeah, but of course, so I was on YouTube almost exclusively. And then in 2022, I branched out onto TikTok and YouTube Shorts when I had some young audience members of mine, some Gen Z guys who were really into the short form content. They got involved and they said, hey, Ron, you need to be making shorts because shorts are all the rave right now. And algorithmically, they're getting super kind of promoted. And then so I had an editor come in, this kid Bailey and this other guy Patrick, and they did some amazing shorts for me. And then the subscriber count grew. But trying to document content pipeline strategy stuff, I'm honestly not that good at it because my channel's not that big. Sure, compared to other people, it might be big, like 60,000 on YouTube or whatever. But for a channel that's 7 years old, that's actually not that good. Like some people get to 60,000 in weeks or months if they really optimize for, engagement and retention, which are things that I don't do. What I do is I lean into niching. I'm an ultra niche content creator. And so my audience is small, but to get to my channel, you have to go through a large funnel where I'm at the bottom of a large funnel. So when you finally get to Jaw Hacks and how kind of down the rabbit hole it is when it comes to the depth of the content, you're going to be a committed audience member almost by default because you've screened yourself for exactly this specific question and this type of content. So it's a small audience, but a very dedicated audience, which is, again, another weird thing that can happen with coaching is that it might not look like you have a large following, but you might just have a really dedicated following, and that following might be interested in paying to speak to you. Right. So yeah, not all views are created equal. Not all subscribers are created equal. And in terms of engaging with different social media platforms, I'm interested in YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok because that's where my audience lives. But I pretty much don't do TikTok or Instagram at all because I don't know. I don't have the resources for that right now, and I'm trying to hire that out. But I mostly just do YouTube.
You brought up some very good points and some very interesting points. The first was around choosing a niche, and choosing a niche that where people, there's this high awareness. So by the time people get to you, they're really looking for you, essentially, and you're there to answer their questions. And the second point that I thought was very interesting that you just mentioned was around, you chose the channels where your audience is so that they can find you. So obviously you share that you went through this whole journey from blog to YouTube, podcast, and then TikTok, Instagram. And now you're kind of, you know where your audience is, and you can also use that to your advantage. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you do that?
Yes. So I'm just saying that if I were to consume content that's in my niche, I would go to very specific places. And those places are YouTube. Instagram has a very active airway health community, and specifically all of the doctors have Instagram profiles, and that seems to be where they communicate with each other. Facebook as well, because obviously these doctors are a little older and Facebook trends older. And then TikTok is where you go for what's called looks maxing content. Looks maxing is sort of an adjacent niche to what I do. I don't dissociate myself from looks maxing. I embrace it. I think looks maxing is, I don't judge it at all. And truthfully, my content is very useful for looks maxers. But looks maxing is a young phenomenon. It's like 15 to 25-year-olds generally, and they're very much on TikTok. So I'm just saying, like, this is where other creators in my space are making content. And so theoretically, if I were to try to trend with those creators, that's where I would go. Reddit is also huge for my niche, as well as Discord. And I do have a Discord as well, which is a free community, but Discord is crazy, and I that's a whole different conversation. It's nothing like Swarm. And just to keep it simple, I had thought about using Discord instead of Swarm, but you can't share videos easily on Discord. And of course, the whole thing about Swarm is how easy it is to share videos with people. And I'm a very video centric person, and we can get into what my Swarm looks like. But basically, people send me messages in Swarm, and then they usually send me text, and then I batch respond with video. And you can't do that in Discord. You can have like live calls, video calls in Discord, but you can't send video messages in Discord. You can't even get Discord to preview like a Loom link. So yeah, but just to be clear, I'm not really taking advantage of these platforms. I'm pretty much still only on YouTube right now. But I aspire to break into Instagram and TikTok.
And I think another important thing that shows, especially to people who, you know, are taking the early stages in their journey, is you don't have to be on 5 different channels to find your audience or to build a successful business. You can find one that works really well for you, especially at the start where you have limited time and resources, and focus on that one channel that works for you. Would you say that you agree with that statement?
I absolutely agree with that statement. I think it's all about quality over quantity, and just disclaiming the fact that I am by no means an ultra wealthy, ultra successful person doing this. It's like I'm making a living, but not a killing. Just to be clear, I'm not Mr. Beast, and I'm not a millionaire, not even close. In fact, I wish my money situation were a lot better, to be honest. But I'm doing okay, and I don't need to find another job right now. So yeah, I'm making a living, not a killing. So take what I have to say with a grain of salt. If you aspire to have a Bugatti, then maybe don't listen to me, right? But yeah, I've been able to get to where I am just basically through YouTube alone. Mind you, it's a lot harder to break into YouTube now than it was back in 2018 when I started. Not that it's impossible. I think with a niche, as long as you have a niche, there's always an opportunity to break through. And I would say, yeah, focus on the platforms that you're drawn to, because that's probably where your audience is going to be. I have a friend, his name is Rob. He runs another platform called Perfect Hair Health. And it's a very successful membership community that he custom built from scratch back in 2019. And Rob told me that the key to that whole membership is the fact that his members can send him video questions. So he told me that if I could just somehow get a way to have yes, some one-on-one coaching that's live, but also an ability to have clients send you follow-up video questions, and then you can respond by video. That was essentially all that I needed in order to have a up and running membership community. And that was not coming from a place of theory. That was coming from a place of him having done this for over 5 years. And this is just how it played out in his membership of many hundreds of people. So I took him at his word, and I strived to find a platform that would make it very convenient for me to message back and forth with clients via video. And I searched far and wide for that. I tried Circle. I tried several other of the top membership sites, membership platforms, Kajabi, whatever. There was lots of other ones. And finally, I found Swarm, which is built on the idea of being able to share video messages with each other. And I thought, yes, this person, this developer gets it. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Just turns out to be very competitively priced as well compared to some of these other offerings. You have this ability to white label, the icon as an app on your iPhone, which is very professional looking and very cool, which I loved. And I just went for it. So I launched in 3 phases. I had a very warm list of past coaching clients from the years that I sent a discounted I called it a founder's launch. I gave them a pretty significant discount to join. And from that group, I think I got maybe 35 or 40 members off of a 650 email list. Now, I discounted that significantly out of gratitude for them and the support that they had given me in the past. And because in the past, my coaching model had just been sign up for a one-on-one call, for this price. And then we would talk, and then that would be it. There was no asynchronous communication, no email follow-up, no video message follow-up after that. And so for people that had coached with me recently, like in the past year, I wanted to make sure that they could get low-cost access to being able to video message me if that's what they wanted to do. So I greatly reduced the price for the founders. And I think we brought in maybe 35 founding members. Then I took my broader email list. These are people who had not done coaching with me in the past, but maybe followed me on Substack or had signed up for a PDF that I was giving away for free on my website. And that was an email list of about 2,500. And from that group, there was only about another 10 sales. So it just goes to show how people that have done business with you in the past are way more likely to do business with you in the future. And then also maybe potentially how pricing can alter things, because the founder's price was about 35% cheaper than the full price. And then I went public. Basically, I just listed it on my website. And since then, I have done about a membership a day on average. And that's at $429 and just to be clear of what people get when they work with me, they get 60 minutes of one-on-one coaching live, and that can be broken up into one 60-minute call, 140 and 120, or 3 20-minute calls. So you can divvy that up how you want. And it also gets the ability to asynchronously message me for an entire year. So you get a whole year of admission into the joint, into my Swarm space. And I just disclaim the fact that I respond to messages roughly every 3 days. So you can basically get me twice a week with a message for a whole year. And then also you get access to live events that occur inside of the joint. So the doctors that I interview on my podcast, I generally ask them if they're willing to come into the joint to do a private Q&A with my members. And so members inside the joint can converse live in real time with the doctors as well. I'm trying to really pack on the value, a 1-year membership with lots of one-on-one time with me for $429, and I'm doing about a membership a day, which again, it's a living, it's not a killing. And maybe once I get my content pipeline figured out better and I start putting out more better content, those numbers might go up. But honestly, I'm not in a rush to have those numbers go up because I have limits as to how many people I can actually service. And that number might be something like 250 to 300 members. And so if we're already at, let's say, 50 or maybe a bit more than 50 at this point, and assuming some amount of people are not going to churn out a year from now, that means that there's only so many members that I can handle, right? Like I don't need to really sell 100 of these a day, and I don't want to, because I do want to continue to bring utmost quality to each person who does sign up. And so probably as I think what's going to happen is once I hit the 100th member, I'm going to increase pricing so that to try to reduce volume, knowing that I probably have like a cap at 250 to 300 members at any one time. And so,
Yeah, that makes total sense.
the revenue on that, let's just say between discounted and full price, the average might be 350 times 50. And that's in the past month and a half. And that would be my revenue. But I also had a lot of startup costs. My top 3 pieces of advice are just going to be what has worked for me. And what has worked for me is finding a niche that has not a lot of competition in it, because then your content doesn't really have to be that great. It can just be niche specific, and you will just be the default channel that people land on when it comes to that niche. For me, that niche is airway health, expanders, jaw surgery. Even 6 years later, there's still not a lot of people creating content in this niche. So find a niche. And then even if you're not that interested in the niche, ideally you would be. And I was interested in this niche when I started, but truthfully, who's interested for anything for over 5 years, right? Like at this point, I have to encourage myself to stay interested. So just because you're not inherently interested in something, it doesn't mean that you can't fabricate interest so that you can stay in that space as a content creator. And the way I've done that is just constantly be meeting new people in the space, constantly be interviewing top thinkers in the space. And then their interest in the things they teach you will become infectious to you, and you will become more interested. And that makes it more sustainable over the long term. The next thing is trust and honesty. You're saying things in public that are going to be on record forever. It's never worth it to lie for short-term gain, because in the long term, that's going to burn you. And on that note, what I would also add is I've avoided Reddit, and I've avoided Discord, and I've avoided any medium that encourages me to have rapid fire text messaging with other people, because those messages live forever. And you know that you're going to say something at some point that is not going to age well. And better to say that in video than in writing, because at least with video, there's emotion, there's context, there's tonality, there's, your face, your body language, and people can, it's also harder to screenshot, right? Like if you say something stupid 5 years ago, sure, people can clip it out, and God bless them if they do. I guess what I'm saying is, if you don't have to be in any direct messaging platforms where you're, writing lots of things in a sloppy fashion, I would avoid that, and I would focus on video content creation. And then last, I would say bring 110% to every interaction. Every day when I do coaching, I wake up that day and I say, I'm going to bring 110% to every client, because they see me as someone special. And I might be a hero to this person. And they say never meet your heroes, because you'll always be disappointed. I try to not disappoint people when they meet me. I try to make it so that people are not just getting value from my technical expertise, but they're getting value from my friendship and the human connection that they have with me, and what I can do for their self-esteem and sense of purpose and worth. Bring 110%, whatever that means for you. And then a last piece of advice: to be a good coach, you have to be a good person, because you don't want to be a charlatan who is a professional advice giver, even though you're a rotten person in real life. So I think sobriety is important. I think morality is important. I think you have to be healthy. You have to eat well. You have to exercise. You have to have a relationship with God. You have to do all of the things that make you a better person, because as a content creator and as a coach, all you're really doing is putting yourself on camera and in words, and whoever yourself is going to show. So you can't fake that. You have to just make it real, so that when you just turn your on button, press the on button, it's just like a real good thing comes out. And that's a process, right? And it's up and down, and I've had peaks and valleys with that. But my best content occurs during periods when I'm my best self, and my best coaching occurs when I'm my best self. And there's just no shortcut around that. I would say if you see video as a big part of what you do, then Swarm is the right platform. I'm a video content creator. People meet me on YouTube, and when they buy my time, when they sign up for my coaching, I'm sure they don't just want some text version of me that could theoretically be some AI chatbot or some, kid in the Philippines that I hired to respond for me at, $12 an hour. They want me. And it's so easy to like try to fake you these days with bots and AI and whatever. And I think the way you cut through that is with video. And I think as more and more AI slop is peddled around on the internet, I think real one-on-one video connection with creators is going to be at even more of a premium. And I think that we're going to see a stratification in the creator economy of people that are real and authentic and that can show up on camera, and those that rely more on the AI content to sort of fake a person for them. And I think that a platform like Swarm allows you to lean into that going into these next few years of real AI turbulence. I would also say if you're starting up, I think Swarm is very cost effective. And I would say if you have visions for really having a more modular, custom built system like I do, where I integrate lots of different apps, and for example, it would be Swarm is my actual platform, but I have a WordPress website where my sales page is hosted. I use Zapier to tie in Acuity scheduling where my actual coaching occurs. I use Google Meet for my live events. I use Airtable as a database for all my clients and storing my client data. I use esignatures.com for getting disclaimer forms. I use Fillout for patient intake forms, StreamYard for podcasting. I use Kit for emails. Like I have lots of different softwares, of which Swarm is just one of them. And Swarm works friendly with that type of workflow. So Swarm has Zaps that you can use in Zapier. You can tie Swarm into other apps using Zapier. Swarm uses Stripe. And so you can also allow triggers from purchases made through Swarm that appear as Stripe transactions to also feed into Zapier and then trigger lots of events. It just works for me given what, my custom workflow. And then I would also just say Gavin, who's the developer, anytime I email Gavin about anything, it's like 24-hour response or less. Problems are always getting solved. And I did not realize this about getting into this kind of software as a service space and creating my own platform through Swarm. But like shit happens and like things come up, and you don't necessarily need a platform to be perfect as much as you need it to be responsive, right? Because what really matters is if something needs to be tweaked for you, is there someone at the other end of that email or is there not? And that's not something people who are used to just buying things on Amazon or like, oh, I just want my iPhone to work and it always does. Like you're not in that domain of things are going to work perfectly every time anymore. You're in the domain now of like custom building platforms that can be delicate and you need support on the other end, unless you want to pay, $5,000 a month in developer fees for someone else to figure it out for you. And Gavin has been that for me. And so I'm grateful to Gavin for that. And so that's what I would say. I'm showing you now the Joint, which is my coaching space, from the perspective of a test user named Abraham Lincoln. So here's Abe L. And so here's what my space, the Joint, looks like. And so it's very, very simple. It's an extremely streamlined platform for me. So I have a start here page where I have a welcome for new members. And then I have some FAQs that get answered on the start here page. I mean, I don't even have a separate FAQ page. I just have a start here page. And I'm a big believer in minimalism and simplicity and cleanliness when it comes to software. So I've eliminated all hubs that I don't absolutely need. So all my Q&As are handled here on the start here page. So we have schedule a call with Ron. Here's where you take advantage of the 60 minutes of coaching that you get with your membership. And I guess I should really step back, right? So how are people even finding this service, right? So from any of my YouTube videos or from my Substack or from a direct email, you'll get invited to this sales page, jawhacks.com/coaching. And it tells you exactly what's included inside of the joint. The joint is my 1-year membership that's hosted inside of Swarm. You get 60 minutes of live coaching with me. You get live Q&As with me and with guest experts, and you get 1 year of asynchronous direct messaging with me. And that's $429 a year presently. And I pit that against doing a one-time call, which is my old coaching model, which is $415. So this is like the obvious value compared to a one-time call of 45 minutes for basically the same price. So you sign up, and now you're inside the joint. And immediately what I encourage people to do is sign up for an onboarding call. And that's either a 20, 40, or 60-minute onboarding call. This is done through Acuity scheduling. So I just dropped a link inside of this hub, and then this calendar loads up, and the back end of what Acuity looks like is a whole separate conversation. Acuity is very flexible, but also tough to kind of set up initially. But yeah, I just drop a link to my Acuity schedule inside of here. And so there's also extra calls that are paid add-ons. Let's say you've already consumed your 60 minutes of coaching time, but you want to talk again. You can pay for 20, 40, or 60 minutes. And these prices are significantly discounted compared to the public pricing for the 45-minute call, which is $415. So another benefit of being a member is if you want to talk for more than 60 minutes, you can do that. And it's basically at close to a 50% discount compared to the public price. Once you sign up for a call, you get a intake form from me that asks you all sorts of stuff. That's all done through Fillout. Fillout is like a questionnaire software. And the connection between signing up for a call and then getting the Fillout form is all done through Zapier. I mean, I guess I could show you what my Zapier looks like, but you're probably not that interested. But also inside Swarm, we have event recordings. So these are past live events that we've done with doctors. There's only been 3 of them so far. One of them was just an AMA with me. We have an announcements page, and then, which is, you know, not too much going on there. Just anytime we have a live event or anytime I make a change to the platform, I announce it there. And then the big thing is direct messaging with me. So again, Abe Lincoln is a test user. So we're seeing this from Abe Lincoln's point of view. So the big thing that coaching clients get is the ability to DM me. And so here Abe sent me a message, and here this is from my account. I responded to Abe actually with the Loom video. Sometimes I use Loom. Sometimes I use Swarm's built-in coaching thing. And I'll tell you why I use Loom sometimes. Sometimes what I do is I go to Loom, and you can see I actually do this quite a bit. If I'm responding to a client, I'll make a Loom, and then I'll drop a link to the Loom in Swarm. And Swarm beautifully loads up the Loom, and you can play it natively inside Swarm without leaving Swarm, which is very, very hard to find in terms of membership platforms. A lot of the membership platforms do not support the use of Loom links inside of the direct messaging. It takes you off-site. It doesn't preview the video. It just shows a link, and then when you click the link, it takes you to loom.com, which is very bad. But the reason I use Loom sometimes is, let's say someone asks me a question inside of the joint. I might record it in Loom. Like this person asked me about how to clean food trapped in their appliance. I'll record in Loom, and then I'll take this video and I'll share it with my video editor, and then he'll make a short clip out of it for YouTube. So I'm trying to get more efficiency out of my process here by, number one, answering the client's question, but then also creating some content out of that question at the same time. So that's another interesting workflow that I found works great with Swarm, is using Loom with Swarm to kind of dual generate content and answer the client's question at the same time. Then here we have the events. I'm due for a live event, but you see last month we had a handful of live events, and I'll probably be setting up a live AMA for sometime in September coming up. Yeah, and that's pretty much my setup. Very bare bones, very minimalist, and but simple, plain and stupid.